Good day, folks, and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with I, your host, the Anorak. Happy November, everyone, and I hope you had a good Guy Fawkes Day and an equally good bonfire night. And so I thought I'd treat you a lot by reviewing another Phil Collins solo album. I've already covered Face Value all the way back in my 7th episode for last year's Valentine's Day, so quite a long while ago. Plus, I've covered quite a few Phil Collins era Genesis albums in between. But after working on one of said albums, 1981's Abacab, the three members took a little break to work on their own individual projects, with Mike Rutherford making Acting Very Strange, Tony Banks doing both the soundtrack to the 1983 film The Wicked Lady, and his own album The Fugitive, and Phil making this album. Upon meeting his eventual second wife, Jill Travelman, Phil was inspired to make his next album more hopeful and uplifting, especially when comparing to the generally bleak and personal debut album. But let's see if he managed to accomplish such by jumping into Phil Collins' 1982 solo album, Hello, I Must Be Going. The title itself was named after a Marx Brothers song of the same name, similar to how Queen named two albums of theirs after two Marx films. The artwork itself is very much standard. While the Face Value album had Phil Collins' face right up close and taking up the whole cover, this one features his very same face from a size perspective against a seemingly gradient blue background, making it more of a profile of sorts. Wait. One album has the pop singer's face front, right up close and facing the viewer, and the next album has that same face turned sideways. I know I might have joked about Adele copying a bit of Phil last time, but this is really something. Coincidence? I think not. And like with the previous album, this too is a gatefold, revealing the interior full of various photos of Phil himself, some of the people who were involved in the making of the album itself, and even a young Simon Collins in a Superman costume. Very cute. Also, one of the people is wearing a similar Superman t-shirt. Cute. So anyways, we must be going into the music itself. We begin the album with I Don't Care Anymore. Well, if you really don't care about it anymore, why even make a song about it? Like with In the Air Tonight and a slew of other Collins and Genesis songs, this one utilizes the classic gated reverb, which is definitely noticeable from the very start with the drums, which definitely sounds similar to the opening of Kate Bush's Sat in Your Lap. However, Phil does most of the instruments in this, not just vocals and drums, but also the synth, tambourine, and bass pedals. Only Daryl Stumer does the main guitar. Quite well, I might add. Almost on par with someone like Steve Hackett or Mike Rutherford. The lyrics themselves, naturally enough, seem to be about the resulting fallout of an unhealthy relationship. No doubt inspired by Phil's first breakup. Here he sings his whole heart out, knowing full well that this is a game that he just can't win in any way possible, not even playing by the same rules anyway. So he just gives up on it, saying he'll do fine and be alright by himself. It's basically like the male version of I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. The song, and the whole album itself, was produced by Hugh Padgham, who also produced most of Phil Collins' drums and albums, as well as Genesis' Abacab, the Mama album, and Invisible Touch. And he does his job just as well here as most of the other producers that Genesis had worked with before and since, like John Anthony, Dave Hitchcock, John Burns, David Hetchell, and Nick Davis. While this doesn't have the build-up that made In the Air Tonight so memorable and iconic, I Don't Care Anymore is still a decent, emotional, and energetic track, and is just as good an opener to such an album like this. Next is I Can't Believe It's True. Well, I can believe it's true. It's true that this is a very funky, upbeat, and happy-go-lucky track. This song predominantly features the Phoenix Horns, who had previously been featured in Phil Collins' I Missed Again and Genesis's No Reply at All, the latter of which this is very similar sounding to. In terms of lyrical content, this seems to center around the theme of discovering a truth or secret hidden by a particular lover, as Phil opened a letter yesterday and couldn't believe his eyes. It was the letter B, and turning it over to the other side, there's a note, a musical note. Oh, and there's some messages as well in there, I guess. All the feelings he had have all gone, and now he's living on borrowed time. But it's his time. Or at least he says it is for sure, but it turns out it's actually rental. Then there's that nice little saxophone solo in the middle of the track, played by one of the Phoenix Horn members, Don Myrick, who also played on If Leaving Me Is Easy, and he does just as fantastically well here as he did in that song too. If I Don't Care Anymore is a tad too dramatic for your taste and liking, then I Cannot Believe It's True should be uplifting and light enough for you. Then we have Like China, another upbeat track, this one being more rock in nature than funk, more similar to Keep It Dark from Abacab, with this guitar riff being played by Daryl as before, plus a bass from session musician John Giblin, who also contributed to many songs and albums by the likes of Peter Gabriel, Kate Bush, and John Anderson, just to think of a few, so on and so forth. In fact, he did the bass for In the Air Tonight, as well as a few other Phil Collins songs, while Phil himself still performs the drums, keyboards, and hand claps. The song focuses on a boy becoming infatuated with a particular girl, and being seen by his parents as crazy just for feeling so. The first girl he has ever truly loved, and he wonders if she might feel the same way to him. Even when her parents say that they don't like him, and her brother sees him as a limp-wristed wimp. But he is determined to prove them all wrong. He is actually a limp-ankled wimp. He promises her he'll be delicate and careful with her. He'll hold her as if she were china or porcelain. All through most of the track, Phil sings in this fancy pseudo-Cockney accent, which he had used for a few other songs, including some in Genesis. And this apparently dated all the way back to a young age of his, when he played the Artful Dodger in an Oliver Twist play. Yeah, that's actually true. Look it up. And don't get me started on that guitar solo near the end. Just brilliant. Almost a singer in and of itself. This is probably one of Phil's more underrated tracks in my opinion. Almost, not exactly Genesis-y, but still fitting that general pop rock vibe that they were kind of getting into by the early 80s onwards. Afterwards is Do You Know, Do You Care? Well, if I actually know, I would actually care for it. Anyway, the track itself opens with what sound like strange industrial clanging sounds echoing from a distance, giving us a very ominous start before the music itself kicks in proper. And it's still just as ominous. Here, Phil sings out his heart once more with frustration, calling out his partner for lying, cheating, breaking promises, making excuses, and laughing and mocking him. Especially in the very chorus itself, not only the way he stretches some of his notes, but when he reaches such a high pitch near the end, mere words alone wouldn't even be enough to describe such a bit. And fittingly enough, the song bookends with the very same industrial sounds as the beginning, giving us a very vicious cycle type of feeling. It's definitely one of Phil's more underrated tracks on his solo discography in my opinion. This is also definitely one of those many Phil Collins solo songs that I think would have worked just as well as a Genesis track. Imagining this being renditioned with Tony Banks's fantastic synthesizers and Mike's raw bass guitars, that would be pretty epic, wouldn't you say? I might. As the previous album ended with a cover version of a classic 60s song, this one does too, as side 1 ends with a cover of the Supremes' You Can't Hurry Love. And funny enough, both Revolver, which Tomorrow Never Knows is from, and The Supremes' A Go-Go, which this song is from, both came out in August 1966. Pretty interesting coincidence, I must say, huh? Again, I think not. Anyway, while they say that you can't beat the original, I honestly like this song just as much as the original, this version at least. This one having a different key and pitch, which gives it a more certain and optimistic feel with it. Aside from that though, the lyrics here seem to remain mostly, if not entirely, the same. The themes are left perfectly intact, while managing to fitting well with this album's general themes of finding a new chance in love and romance once more. About learning to find true love and how it may take a long amount of time. You just need patience and determination. Whichever version you may prefer, I'll leave it to you and your personal opinion and preference. For me though, I like this one just as much as the Supreme original.